Cargo in Star Citizen is in a strange place. We've gone from ships spawning with neatly packed boxes to a system where everything is physical, awkward, and often inefficient. Most ships weren't designed for this, and it shows. The shift to physicalized freight has exposed flaws in ship layouts, broken the idea of a cargo ladder, and pushed the meta toward the biggest haulers with the cleanest grids. In this video, I'm breaking down where cargo gameplay is falling apart, and why ships like the Argo Raft are already quietly shaping the future of hauling. We'll talk about what's killing the mid-tier market, how CIG can rebalance the system before small and medium haulers vanish, and I'll dig into the one feature that could completely reshape cargo gameplay the moment it lands. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Captain Katarn. I cover Star Citizen without the drama, the clickbait, or the outrage circus that eats half the conversation. If you're tired of that noise, hit subscribe and join the crew. But here's the thing. I think cargo could be one of Star Citizen's best gameplay loops. When it's done right, it's about strategy, teamwork, and building a living economy where every ship has a role. But if it's not, then it becomes a race to the bottom where only the biggest survive, and the rest of us are left running scraps. That's the road we're on now, and it's worth talking about before we get there. The old system was all about convenience. Cargo was just an abstract number in a database, and ship layouts were often designed without thinking about how freight would physically move through them. I don't think that was a malicious oversight or even a major blunder like some of the single entrance and exit designs. It was the result of a long, evolving development cycle that had to run alongside a live service environment. And yeah, sometimes that's rough for players and the ships themselves. Back then, it didn't matter if a ramp was steep, a doorway was narrow, or the cargo bay had awkward corners and dead space. The game spawned your cargo in perfectly packed, and you took off without a second thought. Once physicalized cargo arrived, the dream of a perfect loadout disappeared. The boxes you get now are exactly what the mission gives you. Mixed sizes, awkward shapes, and no guarantee they'll stack neatly into your grid. You're moving them by hand or with a tractor beam, and the process is only as efficient as your space allows. If you're lucky, your hold packs cleanly. If you're not, you end up staring at cargo that technically fits by volume, but refuses to go in because of how the grid is designed. I like efficiency, and nothing kills that faster than having one stubborn crate that just won't fit. This is where ship design starts to matter in ways it didn't before. Take the Hull series, for example. The Hull A is technically a small hauler, but its expanding frame gives you a clean, modular grid every time. No wasted space, no awkward corners. That's a massive advantage over ships with bays full of structural beams, angled bulkheads, or misaligned doorways. The physical cargo system rewards efficiency, and some ships are naturally better at it than others. That's why the Raft is a good benchmark. After the rework, the old 3-pod setup is gone. In its place is a single flat cargo grid that takes mixed box sizes without wasting space. You back up to a freight elevator and the tractor has a clear line to the whole deck. Loading is predictable and unloading is quick. The grid matches the rating in practice, which is rare now and ideal. It's still an open deck, so you'll trade some protection for speed, but for day-to-day hauling, the workflow just works. Contrast that with the Constellation series. Physicalized cargo exposes their problem, and while they can still carry a decent amount, it's way less than you think they should be able to given their size and intended crew requirements. I like the ships for their jack-of-all-trades approach, but they can only take a fraction of their listed cargo due to weird 1 and 2 SCU spots that you'd ideally never want to load anyway. Its capacity is small and inefficient, a major issue for a ship that's supposed to be a crewed workhorse. A handful of newer ships, like the Starlancer series, and industrial concepts such as the Ironclad, have clearly been built with physicalized cargo in mind. Wide ramps, clear tractor beam lanes, and unobstructed grids make life a lot easier. These designs reduce choke points and cut down on wasted space, but they still carry trade-offs. The Starlancer's twin bays look impressive in a brochure, yet splitting your freight between them doubles the loading zones you have to manage. Without a well-coordinated crew, turnaround times can creep up and eat into the margins that make these runs worth taking. And that's the real danger, designing an economy where only scale wins. If the meta settles into go big or go broke, most ships will lose their reason to exist. That's not only bad for players who prefer smaller haulers, it's bad for the in-game economy because you lose diversity in trade routes and risk profiles. In a healthy system, you want big ships doing bulk runs and smaller ships handling agile, high-risk, or specialized freight. Both should be viable, just in different ways. Right now, though, that balance feels fragile. We're still early in the physical cargo era, and CIG has plenty of room to tweak rates, volumes, and loading mechanics. But unless they actively design the economy to give smaller haulers a place at the table, we could end up in a situation where the only profitable way to move goods is in a ship that takes a dozen players to crew. That might look great in a trailer, but it's not much of a sandbox if the only viable gameplay is bulk hauling. The shift to physicalized freight has also made crew composition and ship layout a deciding factor in profitability. In the old days, loading was instant, and the only metric that mattered was cargo capacity. Now every extra step or awkward corner adds seconds that stack into minutes, and those minutes limit the number of contracts you can take in a play session. Efficiency is about how quickly you can cycle it from empty to full and back into space. For medium haulers, this is where the math starts to get ugly. The Starlancer Max, for example, offers a respectable 224 SCU, but to hit peak efficiency and stay combat ready, you need multiple crew members. Split the payout across that team, and the per-person profits shrink really fast. If freight rates don't adjust, running a ship like this for pure cargo will always lag behind the return on a big ship with an identical crew requirement. It's just logical, and players are going to max their credits per hour where they can. Cargo diversity is the other big wildcard. If commodities vary in physical volume, storage requirements, and payout rates, you open the door for niche roles. A ship with less SCU but secure, climate-controlled storage might end up running high-value, low-volume freight for better margins per trip. That kind of design space could keep ships like the Cutlass and smaller freelancers viable long-term, even as the cargo meta shifts toward larger-scale hauls. If certain goods demand specialized handling, like climate control, shock protection, or hazardous materials containment, then ships that can meet those needs get an advantage over bulk haulers, even with less SCU. Think Mal Reynolds hauling a load of cattle, something the Nomad or Raft couldn't do based on their design. Balancing this without breaking progression is going to be tricky for CIG. There has to be a design-led solution rather than just adjusting the numbers. That solution might come from environmental restrictions. More ports with small pads, narrow docking tubes, or limited access could create natural work for medium and small haulers. Routes that require rapid short-haul drops, moving perishable goods, or multi-stop deliveries could all tilt the advantage back toward agility over sheer volume. Without that, the game's economy will likely push toward a big or broke meta, and that's bad for ship diversity. When I think about where Star Citizen could actually end up long-term, I'm not thinking about bigger ships or new planets. I'm thinking about long-term infrastructure. Player-build infrastructure. Right now, most of the gameplay is transient. You run a cargo haul, sell the load, and the credits disappear into gear, repairs, or fuel. Maybe you're saving up for that next tier of ship, but none of it really matters, and there's no permanence to it yet. But that all changes the moment players can build something. Outposts, refineries, factories, and have a reason to keep it running. Now you're personally invested in the world, even if there's a wipe in the future. That's when Star Citizen stops being a series of missions and starts becoming a full-blown strategic sim. Resource gathering is already inching in that direction. Mining and salvage, they're all laying the foundation, but they're still just inputs. What changes the game is when those inputs matter. When ore feeds your refinery, or when your salvage stockpile fuels your org's manufacturing hub, then the parts you collect get turned into real gear for real players. Suddenly, hauling changes from only flipping cargo for profit to sustaining your infrastructure, your operations, your people. You're not just playing the economy anymore, you are the economy. That's really cool to me. And I think that's where cargo hauling ultimately becomes foundational. Once bases and industry come online, the ships that keep them supplied are going to matter more than almost anything else. Hauling will be the lifeblood of territory control. Build a base, fuel it, defend it, supply it. That's a loop that goes deeper than most MMOs have ever dared to touch. It's a reason to scout locations, to secure routes, to run convoys, and to fight over resources that actually matter, because the other side needs them just as much as you do. I want to see that future, where logistics isn't an afterthought, where the players running freight, building outposts, or maintaining pipelines are just as critical as the ones pulling the trigger. A world where your org's success doesn't hinge on what ship you bought, but on what you built, who you support, and how well your infrastructure holds up under fire. I think that's the dream. A living galaxy that doesn't just reset every time you log off. One that remembers what you built, who you helped, and what you risked to keep the lights on. And while it's still a ways off, I think we should start looking at cargo with that bigger picture in mind as the connective tissue that ties the entire Star Citizen experience together. If they get it right, it'll be the reason the galaxy works. There's a lot in motion here, but what do you think? Got a favorite hauler? Are you happy with where cargo hauling is heading? Let me know in the comments. I always read and try to respond to them all. And if you made it this far, you're already a member of the crew, so let's make it official. Hit subscribe and join us. If you'd like to support the channel further, there's a join button, Patreon, or my referral link to the Impound. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.